Hey, what's up? This is Jake here in Jake's shop. Getting on to the next process with this fender. I'm going to go ahead and do a heat shrinking video. I think this is probably going to be a good panel to use for heat shrinking. Just kind of showing what I'm going to try and do at least. This is kind of a big flat area, and I went ahead and shot a little bit of guide coat on it and just lightly sanded it down. Guide coat being just some flat black, Ralcan paint. Just kind of lightly hazed it, sanded it down. So what you're seeing here is like a low spot, kind of a big low spot in this big panel here. So it's actually hard to see. A hammer and dolly would work in this application, at least I think it would a little bit, but heat shrinking might work a little better. It's not going to be perfect by the time I get done, but I can definitely make it better. So I'll try and show that. I'll flip the camera around and kind of try and show this here. Paint sticks are nice flat edges. They're actually pretty good to use in something like this to kind of get an idea where your low spots are actually at. So I'll go ahead and flip this around and we'll try and get an idea what's going on here. So the paint stick is flat and you can see the gap we've got here, right? Hopefully you can kind of see that through there. That gap kind of goes up, and it's obviously, you can see it with the guide coat on it. But I'm going to heat shrink that down a little bit. So we'll see what this does. A couple of different ways to heat shrink that I've used, at least, that work for me. This could actually be filled with filler and probably block sanded out pretty easily, but I don't know. I kind of like the idea of less potential for filler in there, because filler is going to come across this edge as well. You can see this whole back edge is low, and like I had said in previous videos, when you're looking at a car, if it's straight, it's not about just the main panel being straight. It's also the edge. These edges tend to roll down over time, probably even from the factory a little bit. This one too, you can see a couple low spots. Most of that will be primer, filled with primer. That's actually probably going to be filler in there. And I'll have filler in here anyways. These edges will all get crisped up in these body lines. I'll have filler in them. So I'll go ahead and get the camera set up, get the torches out, and we'll try some heat shrinking. Okay, so apparently my Oxy Acetylene torches are really low on oxygen over here, so I'm probably not going to bother trying to use them. I'm going to try it a different way on this panel to start. I actually haven't used this one in a while to try it this way, but it should be the same basic process. You're just trying to heat up the metal. Kind of wait till it gets kind of orangish red in one little spot, and then hit it with water. And what I mean by water is just a wet rag. You're going to want to be careful not to burn up rags you don't want to burn up, but I just use a good cotton old washcloth or something. This is actually a rag, and just a bucket of water. So I'm going to get it heated up. We'll see if this works. I'm going to just use the Butane Torch since my Oxy Acetylene Torch is out of oxygen. At least, or the gauge is bad. But anyways, yeah, well, let's try it out. This is just a turbo torch. This one's run a little hotter. This is just a quick ignition one. Use it for soldering. So anyways, we'll see how this works. So I kind of just I try and focus on the low spot first, and the metal kind of warps down. And I'm going to see if I can get this hot enough in one spot. It'll start to turn kind of orange. It's a lot easier with a torch. See, kind of turning red. And cool it down. To get those molecules moving, then you shrink that metal back up. Metal heats, it expands, it comes, and then you cool it right down. It kind of comes back up, Now with the Oxy Acetylene Torch, actually works a little better, I find. I've got ventilation going in here. If there's paint on the back side of the, you definitely don't want all these fumes going around if you had much of that going on there. And I tend to use a bigger rag and try and get that stuff to shrink back up. Came up a little. A good way to check that There's still a low spot there, but you need to do that over and over and over again. So it's coming up a little. I don't know. That torch is probably not the best one to use. I use that for soldering, but now that I've got water on it as well, you definitely don't want to leave water on bare metal. I'll take the torch and dry it all off real lightly. I'm not going to heat it like that, just to make sure it doesn't remain wet, because bare metal, this stuff will pretty much rust almost instantly. So I'm just drying the panel off now, because I'm going to go get some more oxygen. I don't really like the way this is working, so I'll come back around and I'll show you the way I typically do it with the Oxy Acetylene Torch, and we'll go from there. Okay, you saw me floundering a little bit earlier with my butane torch. I'm going to go ahead and get this. I'm going to try and get to show this. I'm going to go ahead and use the Oxy Acetylene Torch instead. I think there's just enough oxygen in here to make us halfway dangerous. I'm going to get it to flow. You know, and I'm running the oxygen about 10. I'm running the acetylene about 12, 15. You know, everyone's got their different ways of doing it, and I find it just whatever works for you, really. Typically, acetylene, you want to run it until you don't see black smoke, and then you hit it with the oxygen. And my torches are not that great. Here we go, and then you bring the torch in just like that. So you should have glasses on when you're doing something like this. I like the torch in this application because you can get the heat to such a fine point. So again, we're just going to get it and we're just going to heat until that sucker turns bright red, and then hit it. And again, I kind of focusing on the deepest spot here. Same kind of thing. Now I'm just going to go right next to where I just heated. Get it right red. Cool it. And that's why the acetylene torch works so nice. You just get that instant heat. Again, right next to that one. Bright red. That's why this rag's so nice. You know, it holds a lot of water, which means there's a lot of cooling. Again, right next to that one. And I'm kind of working out in a little bit of a star pattern, just to kind of work that edge around and kind of shrink that metal up in a circle. And you know, just kind of pick your poison right there. Find that deep spot, shrink it. Find that deep spot, shrink it. And I have my rag pretty moist for the most part. I'm just kind of picking my areas here, let them get bright red. Obviously, you go much redder than that, you can almost burn through it. This tip is a point. What is this tip? I don't even know. I thought it was a triple aught actually, or a double aught tip. For whatever reason, I can't see it, but you know, this is actually just a welding tip. It works nice because I can really pinpoint where I want that to go. I probably could have made the butane torch, the other torch work okay, but I just find this is so much easier. And again, I'm just working it in a circle out from the center, you know. And once I kind of work out from the center, you know, this will take time. It just takes time and patience. Yeah, it's pulling in nice. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. Just right around, just kind of right around that edge. Heat, shrink, heat, shrink, heat, shrink. And it's pulling the metal up. You know, there's actually almost it's not a bump, you know, more proud than the dent was, but it's prouder than, way prouder than it was before. So there's a high spot in the center of the dip that wasn't there before. This is kind of an old, I don't know, this is kind of an old guy's thing. I actually learned this from the guy that, you know, is dead now, and how he did it. And then I reaffirmed it from a guy at work. Hey, just a sec, buddy, I'm heat shrinking, I'm on video. You see what I'm doing here? Let it get red and cool it down. You know, there's a lot of water on this bare panel, so once you're done heat shrinking a lot of times, you're going to want to, you know, make sure this is super dry before you get all said and done. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to work out in this fashion. I'm going to work it out. I already can feel this thing pulling up. You know, once it gets high to a point, I'm going to work back and hit the next point. And the metal's going to want to warp down. When you do this, once you heat it, it kind of flexes down, and then it's going to flex back up. And I don't know if you're going to see it in the camera or not, but that whole area is pulling itself up right now. And you can go back to the same thing you did before and heat it and shrink it again. Heat it and shrink it again. You're just bringing that metal back. You're kind of realigning those molecules back to the way they were, shrinking that metal back into position. This just takes time and patience. It's not really that hard. You know, if it did pull up to the point to where it's too high, you could get a dolly behind it and then pound it back down. You know, this is the type of thing that it takes a lot of time. That's why a lot of body shops won't mess with this. You know, they'll just go straight to using body work, or filler. And a lot of times filler's fine. You know, if you can keep it from being too much filler in a panel, there isn't really a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and finish heat shrinking this, just working that out in that low spot, going back and forth with heat and cool and heat and cool. And I can see that it's already coming up in this area. And I'm just going to kind of, you know, I started in the center and I'm working around it and around it and around it. And then if I need to, I'll come back in and heat shrink, and it's pulling, the metal is pulling up. I can actually feel that it's already coming up in that area. So I'm just using spot, work it out, and then just go back. So I'll go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and shut this off for now, but, and continue. I'll finish heat shrinking it. Maybe show a clip when it's all done if my oxygen lasts for me here, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I'll kind of show you, I started to run out of oxygen, but basically that's what you do. It just takes patience, it just takes time. You know, if I had more oxygen, I probably would have worked it out even more. Spot, heat, cool, heat, cool, heat, cool, heat, cool, and just keep doing it over and over. So I probably did this for about half an hour. Even just this area, and I went back and back and back. You can feel it. It's going to be hard to see on the camera, but you can actually feel it with your hand. There's still some action in there. It's still definitely low, but it's better than it was by far. Now, at some point you're going to stop, and you're only going to bring it so far. You're still going to feel probably a low spot potentially. Again, now it's time for hammer and dolly. It really brings it back. So I'm going to try and show you what I did in the camera, what I do in the camera here. Anytime you're beating on metal, I like to put a block behind it, mostly, unless you're really trying to slam a dent out. But again, you're gonna risk warping the other areas out too far. So on this particular application, the fender's off the car. It's really easy. I've got my block, I've got my body hammer, one of them, and I'll just put the block behind this area, and you can kind of see it with the block if there's low spots. And you're just gonna, and when you hit, it's probably gonna be loud, but when you hit, and you're just gonna work this area out. And you know, you might be beating on that thing like that, you know, check it, look at it, check it, look at it, do it again, until you got it where you want it, really. It's kind of an art form. I'm no master at it, but it works pretty good for me, especially if you don't want deep mud. And then, like I showed earlier in the video, I've got my paint stick. You know, they work good for so many things. But you know, and I'm kind of just checking it with my eyes, looking down with the paint stick down that area to see. Now I can tell that thing is way better than it was. You know, probably another 15 minutes with a hammer, and those little, there's actually still a little bit of a low spot here. And what I mean by low, I'm talking 1/16 of an inch low. You know, right there, it's almost perfectly flat now. Before, it was, you know, over 1/16 an inch deep there. So that's what I'm going to do. And, you know, you want to check it. If there's something that's peaking up high, you're going to do the reverse. You know, you'll take your body hammer, like this area right here is actually just slightly high. So again, I'll use my body hammer. Now, there's a slight curve in this fender. So if you have a dolly, it's got a slight curve, you might try that. This one is almost too extreme of a curve. I'm going to put it back in there. Flip to the flat side. And just working it. Now, I use my hands a lot spots for feeling things. You know, it's still filled, there's action in here, you know, there's low spots. It's going to have a light layer of filler with the whole thing. We're not body filling like deep things. Really, the filler is more acting as just a thickened primer. I mean, heck, if you wanted to spray, you know, 6 coats of primer on this thing and block it down, it'd be the same thing. Filler just makes it quicker when you're talking about a 1/16 of an inch. You know, it just feathers everything out. So I touch things a lot with my hands. The other thing that you do need to be careful of, you know, we've used water to cool this down. I've been touching it like crazy. It's wide open in my shop. I need to, once I'm done with playing with this panel today, I'm going to wipe it down with, I'm going to sand it. I'm going to wipe it down with thinner. I'm not going to touch it again, or I'll be wearing gloves when I do, anytime I touch it again. That just ensures that you've just got no moisture, you know, the oils and stuff in your fingers. I don't like gloves in this application because I just can't feel as well. It's technically, you know, you just don't really want to be introducing all this stuff that's in your hands and moisture in your fingers and stuff back into the bare sheet metal. It'll get down in the pores. So you want to sand it all back off. You want to wipe it off really good with thinner, and don't touch it with your bare hands anymore. Do your body work on nice clean metal. Right before you do your body work, you're wiping it again with thinner or wax and grease remover. That's after you've sanded everything completely off, before you put any body work on this sort, you know, fillers on this sort of thing. So I'll probably do another separate video later on filler and how I like to use it. You know, there will be different filler over here than the filler on the rest of this area. And, you know, I'm going to coat this whole panel. It'll look like a lot of filler, but 95% of it will end up on the floor probably. So hopefully that was kind of informative. It just takes a lot of time. I'm not going to sit here and try and do a whole video straight through on anything I do, because it takes hours. You know, this one fender is probably going to have 10 plus hours of body work in it. That doesn't include the 8 plus hours of stripping, you know, to do it the way I want it done. You know, guys that do this for a living could probably bust it out twice as fast as someone like me or someone who doesn't know what they're doing, really. But, you know, it's not that hard. You can't really mess it up. I mean, you can mess it up, but just use your, you know, use logic. Keep your hands off of it after you're done screwing with it, and keep it clean. And one thing at a time. It just takes, excuse me, it just takes time, this stuff. So, but it's really rewarding here. When I get this fender done, it'll look pretty slick, I think. So, anyways, hope you learned something. What I'm doing, like I said, if I had some more oxygen, I probably would have worked this out even more. You know, I probably would have heat shrieking on this thing for over an hour. Just heat, cool, heat, cool, heat, cool, heat, cool, heat, cool. Keeping your rag wet and cool, and coming back and back and back, and it'll start to tighten it up. And then, you know, use your dolly and hammer to dial it in when you're done. Also find after I've heat shrunk something, it does make the metal a little more brittle, which allows you to work it a lot easier with your hammer and dolly. You know, if you're on a big flat panel and you haven't, you know, it's not as brittle. It's got a lot more ability to move. It's just going to be a lot harder to work it out, unless you're, you know, on a creased area like this. I could dolly that out without heating it, using the back side. I'm going to dolly that dent out. So, anyways, hopefully that was a little bit of information, and we'll go on to the next one. Hey, if you like this video at all or got something out of it, hit like and subscribe. Thanks.